Everyone. Welcome. We're gathered to tune into our hearts today, to open up to happiness, joy, abundance, and fruitful efforts. I also want to call in and call upon that. There's a deep desire related to this tuning into the heart of feeling that efforts and energy expended has a good return on it. And so we'll come back to that again at some point. So if this is your first time watching live or watching the replay, welcome. I'm Rachel Strivelli. I'm an intuitive guide. Periodically, I will close my eyes because that's how I often tune in best to the information coming through. Those who are here live, in a few minutes after I share the message that's for the group, we'll get into the questions for everyone who's here, and then we'll look at the pre-submitted questions. And this month's theme that I tuned into at the end of last month was heart connection. And as we've gotten closer to this time, I've been internally readying for, okay, what is the information that I want to receive to share for all of us that's most useful, most helpful, most loving and beneficial and clear and grounded. I love when spirituality, or whatever you consider spirituality for yourself, I love when it's grounded in something practical and real, and it feels like it has genuine value, and it's not just a fluffy thing people do to feel better. Although feeling better is a nice outcome. So I invite everyone listening to take in a deep breath in through your nose and to feel it going into your body wherever you need that oxygen, wherever you need the support. Whatever muscles, organs, cells need attention, letting yourself let your attention go there. And with a gentle exhale, you're releasing everything that you don't need to hold on to, everything that's not good for you in this moment, everything that's not helpful, that's not yours, that's not your responsibility. I personally, and I think some of us listening, have been going through a reevaluation of, as we engage with the world, there's always this interplay of what's my responsibility, what's your responsibility, how much are we responsible for one another, and where is the line, what is the comfort, what are we stretched to do? And it's different for everyone. And ultimately, no one besides yourself can tell you what that balance is. And at various points, you're going to have to recalibrate. And so with your next inhale, calling in an energy of love, discernment, kind boundary setting, and eyes to see what are the fruitful efforts and what are the efforts that are not fruitful. And it doesn't mean that every single thing we do, we will always know an outcome. I sent out an email today about a couch that went from one house to the next to the next. We didn't know where that couch would end up after 3 years. I connected recently with a woman that I met 20 years ago, and I didn't recognize her when I ran into her at the Folk Art Center in Western North Carolina. But once we started talking and she knew my name, she said, "Oh, were you in such and such a classroom in Buncombe County Schools?" And I said, "Yeah, once 20 years ago in 2001, and she remembered an encounter that we had. Now, I had totally forgotten this encounter, but I made an impact on her. And here I was thinking, 23 years later, I get this reminder out of the blue of an action that I took that made an impact on this woman's entire life. I mean, I'm not saying like every single thing in her life, but every time there's a bee in the classroom, she thinks of me, she helps the kids get the bee out. And so it was a thing. I was just being myself that day. And one of the things that we're tuning into with this heart connection, with this discernment of what's ours and what someone else's, with this discernment of fruitful labors, is this reconnection to each one of us. We have our own role to play. We have our own path to do. We each have our own sole purpose that we want to be living out and fulfilling. And all of the little details, just like in the movie It's a Wonderful Life, if you've ever seen it, you don't know at the end of your life all of the little moments of kindness or thoughtfulness that are going to impact others. And we're being reminded of this today because, again, some of this also I share what I'm going through personally and the transformations I'm having, knowing that collectively there's a lot of this going on, of places where it feels that many efforts have been taken, and yet the evidence of those labors are not yet seen to be fruitful. So for all of us here, whatever kind and benevolent angels, beings, deities that you have a connection to, we're calling them in now. If you enjoy the angels, one of them who I love to call upon is Archangel Michael, because one of his superpowers, if you will, is he has this sword that cuts through the crap, cuts through the things that are not yours, cuts through the ties that other people have to you that are not in service of you. And so this is, I picture Archangel Michael at least once a week. I call upon him to run his sword all around me to cut off any ties or connections that are binding me, that are not serving me, and that are not of my highest good. And so if you're comfortable, Archangel Michael can do the same for you. And this is freeing you from, if you're familiar with the feeling or the experience, some people call it an energy vampire. Some people just say they're draining people to be around, or people who have high expectations for you, but you don't want to meet those expectations. And so Archangel Michael can cut through those ties, those energetic ties, give you your freedom back, give you that experience of not feeling beholden to those who they don't have your best interests at heart. They don't have your best interests in their mind and their intentions. Those of you present, I may not need to say this, but I'm just going to say, anything that we do, it's also, there's the spiritual part of it, and then there's also the, you don't put yourself in situations again when you can help it, for those who have been treating you poorly to treat you poorly again, because Archangel Michael cutting those ties from you is not going to stop the people from doing what it's doing. It's a reset, and it's freeing you from it, and you have to stay committed to that freedom too. Okay. So I'm going to share about this great surrendering that I was tuning into that will be helpful for us. And whatever piece of this feels good for you, take on, and whatever piece doesn't, feel free to release it. And you can also come back and listen to this in a few days if you feel like, okay, in a period of time from now, you're more receptive to listening to it or you want to dive deeper. So some of the discernment about where do you put your energy? Where do you put your attention? Where do you put your efforts? How can you pour yourself into fruitful labors? First, we want to begin with a deep presence within yourself and the feeling of being really grounded, being really connected to your being. Your feet connect to the earth, your being is connected to this planet, and all the parts of you. It's almost, I like to think of gravity as like this magnetic connection that we have. It's not truly magnetic from a scientific point of view, but that gravity pulls us with a loving embrace to be held close to the earth, and there's a caring and a kindness in that. And the great surrendering, when I picture what it feels like as an experience, it feels like that lovely feeling of when you're laying on a body of water that has a floating and an ease and a slight wave to it. And also the pressure of if you were slightly underwater, like the pressure of when you feel water on you, if the water could hug you. So, and if that is, again, too abstract for you, that's okay. You take what works and leave the rest. So picturing that if you were deeply grounded to the earth, you're feeling that gravitational pull, you're feeling that connection to the earth. Picturing then that if you sat on the ground and that pull felt even stronger. Sometimes you can think when you're in an airplane, you can feel a little bit of that pull, that heaviness. And then I imagine if you were outside in the evening looking up at a starry sky and leaning back, surrendering, feeling all of the awe, all of the appreciation that the planets are orbiting just like they need to. The new nebulas and solar systems and stars are being born all over the galaxy. And all the things that you're responsible for are so few in number that you could count them on your fingers, and that everything else you can surrender, knowing that it's not something that you are inherently and only obligated to do. So the great surrendering is a giving up and a releasing of the idea that you have to manage and impact and control and fix all of these different things. And I know for myself, there are things happening on like a national or a global level that I think, oh, I want this to change, I want that to change, and I'll do all these actions. And if I'm not careful, it's very easy for me to get very angry, very sad, very upset, very much feeling defeated or that it's futile because of what I see as little actions making no impact. These labors that I'm doing not having a fruitful outcome. And with the great surrendering, the obligation to do the various actions is not there except where you know within your heart and soul, okay, these are the things that I'm responsible for. But 90% of the other things we're going to surrender to, and that in one way or another, the universe will provide, or you will be provided for. And in surrendering, there's a level of trust that for some of us might be uncomfortable, especially if you've ever had a period where you surrendered or you trusted and you didn't have the outcome that you were hoping for. And so, to whatever level you feel comfortable, you want to be tuning into that surrendering feeling that evokes an awe in you or a relaxation that you might feel looking at a starry sky, floating on a lake or the ocean. That type of gentle relaxation. I don't want anyone to lean into a surrender that feels like you're gripping the railing of something, really hoping that it all works out because I really, really need this. We're going to try not to grip too hard. And all right, I'm going to see if there's anything else. Yes, that's it. Okay. And this great surrendering, it's not just you or me or those gathered here or like 20 other people. There are so many things changing, all not exactly all at once because they're changing at different speeds, but there are so many things changing and shifting that life right now has to be this dance of you can only worry about the 10 responsibilities that you have, and you're surrendering knowing in one way or another things are going to work out. And some of the time the responsibilities will change. I'm getting this idea of the triage of sometimes there are certain things that are going to feel more pressing than other things. And so you having your discernment, leaning back into that relaxation and awe, and determining what are the things that are your responsibility today or this week or this month, knowing that these things may change in a week, in a month, and definitely within a year. Okay. I'm just going to tune in and check if there's anything else that I want to share for the collective group. I'm going to take a sip of water while I do this. Okay. So, a few small points. If discernment feels like it's not your strong suit, then that's your first homework assignment, is to start determining how can you use discernment in your life in a way that truly honors you. And with that, with this great surrendering, with the trust, if I come from the mindset, from the belief system that you can always trust yourself and that you can always trust whatever you believe in as the creator. I sometimes use the term creator, God, spirit. I don't have a preference what terms people use. And if you're atheist, that's okay too. And so as long as you have a trust within yourself and you trust that the universe, generally speaking, is positive, going back to that means you can develop a skill of discernment that will be helpful for you. And if you don't have it right now, that's okay, because any person can develop this skill. And anyone who develops it, there's always the highs and lows of developing it. Just like in school, like you're not going to have an assignment where you get all the questions right the first time. For some people, discernment, oh, food might be a good way to play around with it. Where for 2 weeks, you just look at, is this the food that I want or is that the food that I want? Like intuitively tapping into it, intuitively using your powers of discernment. Do I want to talk to so and so today or do I want to wait till tomorrow to respond? Finding small moments of building up that muscle of discernment are very helpful. And any one of us who is feeling that you're going through a time period of what someone might call undue stress, undue strain, like a heavy level of things that are actually worrying and concerning. As much as you can, give a commitment to yourself that a few minutes every day, you will do this surrendering process that is tapping you back into a feeling of relaxation, tapping you back into a feeling of awe or the vastness of the universe, and that you are not small in an insignificant way, but small in that the universe is big and you are cared for. That kind of size distinction. It's really critical to spend some time every day to reorient yourself to that, because if you don't, it's going to be very easy for you to feel worn down of all the events of your personal life and or things that continue to happen. And the doors that you want to open are going to open more easily for you when you're priming yourself to reinforce this positive outlook, if you will, every day. And yeah, and the last thing I'll say about that is that sometimes people will weigh like, oh, is that realism or optimism or this or that? And let's just say you're giving yourself the best advantage to see the opportunities in front of you. And the way that you can train yourself to do that is by believing that there will be opportunities in front of you, and believing, oh, I live in a universe where it's like babies are forming in people's bodies and the water cycle's going and the galaxies are expanding and nebulas are forming, and none of us have to do anything about that. That's just naturally happening. So trusting in the natural processes of the universe in whatever way that allows you to connect with that trust. Okay. So that's what we're working with for the group experience. Okay. I know we have Jossie and Karen. Do either of you have a question that you want to ask? And if you do, feel free to raise your hand or unmute.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, how are you?
So good to see you. I'm great. This is like divinely timed. My little baby
Mm.
took a little snooze, and then I was like, this is perfect. And I just want to say everything that you're saying. Yesterday, I went on a little wind walk around, and the theme was like, it's nature, it's natural, like just be content in what is, like right now, like find ways to find contentment in it. And everything that you're speaking to right now is like like affirmative, like yes, like, so I just wanted to echo that.
I'm so delighted. That's perfect. And congratulations on your
Mm,
baby.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you
So
so
happy for
much.
you. Is there anything else that would feel supportive for you in this moment?
Mm.
And it can be related to anything really. And I mean, obviously, I'm not a doctor, but sometimes people, and I'm not saying you're going to ask me anything medical, but sometimes people do ask stuff and I can see the energy of it. And,
Yeah.
or there might be something else that feels like, oh, maybe you want to lay the groundwork for something and you have a question about it. Or maybe you're just enjoying being here and the
I
contentment, and that's fine
I
too.
am definitely being here. This week for me, what I've been working on is like being in my own resonance
Mm,
and being in my own flow. And it's crazy because when you're in residence and you're in flow, then these magical moments start to kind of happen. And this week I
yes,
actually posted about talking to trees.
I love it.
I posted on my Facebook page about how I have this like connection to speaking with trees, and you were the first person to make me comfortable to even say it out loud. Like there's something with me and these trees, and I don't know. That felt like I felt like I should share that with you. That because of you,
Aw,
I've been listening a whole lot more to
aw.
trees, and being in my residence where I can hear it, being in my residence where I'm in a flow.